I read an article in The Australian today that made the point that global warmists have convinced people that the weather and the climate are the same thing. Now, as you might expect, isn't actually true. The weather is the day-to-day atmospheric conditions in a particular place, whether it's a hot day, cold day, wet or dry. Climate, on the other hand, is the long-term weather conditions that prevail in a wide area over a prolonged period of time. So they're quite different. But what the warmists have succeeded in doing is giving climate change activists a wonderful tool, particularly politicians. So whenever a heat wave comes along, and whenever we have a hot day, or maybe a big storm, they'll just immediately shout climate change. Political activists will have a field day with that, which they do. In Australia, it's the land of drought and flooding plains that has been the norm in this country forever. But these days, it's always a call to action. More action on climate change, which means more taxes, footing the taxpayer paying more money out to the politicians. I did a video a little while ago called Climate Change, Incremental as Anything, in which the whole idea of incrementalism must be what climate change is if it's a real thing, which I seriously doubt, but if it is, it must be incremental in its nature. That the heat waves, the cyclones, whatever it is only 0.5% worse now because of climate change than it would have been. And it might be 1% worse in 15 years, and it might be 2% worse in 35 years. But the fundamental underlying reality is that a heat wave is just basically, for all practical purposes, just your average heat wave, and your cyclone is just your average cyclone. And the alarmism comes from the political activist mindset, which wants to paint a doomsday scenario for the purposes of political cachet and more power and more taxes. Anyway, I thought of an interesting analogy for this, which is watching paint dry, or actually even better, watching the grass grow. That what these climate activists have now succeeded in doing, by convincing everybody that a hot day is climate change, is almost exactly analogous to convincing people that watching the grass grow is an extremely interesting and fascinating spectator sport. This would, for me, this would include motor racing, which is like watching the grass grow. But the climate activists have convinced people that watching the grass grow is just an incredibly exciting spectator sport, which says something about the mentality of Joe Average out there, who is subject to this sort of political propaganda and brainwashing. Anyway, just a thought. See you later.